Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Quote of the day is: change is inevitable while growth is optional. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Dr. Mahnoor, PG, Community Medicine. Today I am going to present on the topic of environmental risk and impact assessment under the kind supervision of my professor, Dr. Saira Afzal. In this presentation, we're gonna introduce the outline, environmental risk assessment, ecological risk assessment, environmental impact assessment, recent updates, and at the end, we will discuss some MCQs. At the end of presentation, participants will be able to describe importance of environmental, ecological risk assessment and environmental impact assessment. So what is the environmental risk assessment? It is a document that outlines the health risks associated with exposure to environmental contaminants at a site and provides the justification for taking actions to remediate or remove the contamination. In environmental risk assessment, formalized approach estimating the magnitude of harm from some condition. Here, the objective information is provided and public is informed regarding the decision. So, what is the ecological risk assessment? In this, damage to natural or artificial ecosystem, wildlife species, and endangered species is discussed. Here's the difference between environmental risk assessment and ecological risk assessment. In environmental risk assessment, human health risks are studied, while in ecological risk assessment, damage to natural and artificial ecosystem, wildlife, and endangered species discussed. In environmental risk assessment, toxicology and exposure is assessed, like carcinogen effect and non-carcinogen effect. In ecological risk assessment, ecotoxicology is assessed, and probability of extinction of species or population due to chance or pollution or likelihood are exotoxic species will become invasive. So what is risk management? Action taken to overcome risk. So what we do, we identify the risk, then evaluate it and control it and take some control measures, and then implement it, then monitor the overall result, and awareness is provided to the people. Policy decisions that set standards for contaminants in air, water, soil, or food. Environmental risk assessment. Four-step approach of risk assessment. The first one is hazard identification, then dose response assessment, then exposure to assessment is done, then risk characterization is done. Hazard identification, it is the initial investigation of a site, neighborhood, or area, usually include collecting samples and identifying potential source of suspected risk. The samples are analyzed to identify concentration for a comprehensive range of suspected risks. The second step is dose response assessment, involve extensive review of literature to ascertain dose response curves for the endpoints of concern. Here we can see on x-axis is increasing dose and on y-axis is increasing effect. Initially there is no effect, then at a certain point the dose started to respond, and in second window there is a threshold point at that maximum at a certain dose there is a maximum effect, and afterward there is a constant effect. Exposure assessment, estimating exposure to the target population. In this, we see the contact, bioavailability, absorption, estimate of dose to target organ, estimated concentration of the substances seen in air, water, food, and soil. And then the route of exposure is seen, through how this substance is going in, through inhalation, through ingestion, or through skin absorption. Then there is risk characterization, in which we quantitatively estimate of exposure level at which a particular level of excess risk exists. As low as reasonably achievable, ALARA means avoiding exposure to radiation that doesn't have a direct benefit to you. Even if the dose is small, to do this, you can use three basic protective measures in radiation safety. Which are time, distance, and shielding. Control emission by best available technology control. So, what is acceptable risk? Environmental risk assessment is to identify whether particular exposure level is acceptable to target population. Here we can see the risk is increasing on the y-axis. Initially, there is broadly acceptable region where risk is low. When it's further increased, it falls in the tolerable window, and when from a certain point it reaches, which is called the maximum tolerable risk, then it becomes an unacceptable risk. Risk assessment of a non-cancer endpoint. Here we see the no observed adverse effect level, lowest observed adverse effect level, reference dose, and uncertainty factor, acceptable daily intake. We're going to discuss in all this in further slides. So what is the no observed adverse effect level? It is the level of exposure of which is found by experiment at which there is no biological or statistical significant increase in the frequency or severity of any adverse effect at that highest point. The lowest observed adverse effect level is the lowest concentration found by experiment that causes an adverse effect in lowest point. So here you can see in no observed adverse effect, there is a landmark is of a highest point, while in low observed adverse effect level, there is landmark is of lowest point. Reference dose and uncertainty factor. Reference dose is the acceptable level to be the exposed to human population without appreciable risk, while uncertainty factor is when sufficient human data is not available. No observed effect level and lowest LOEAL level derived from the measurement in animal or small groups of human in order to estimate a value for the whole human population. Acceptable daily intake. It is a measure of amount of a specific substance originally applied for a food additive, later also a residue of a veterinary drug or pesticide in food or drinking water that can be ingested orally daily over a lifetime without an appreciable health risk. Ecological risk assessment. Ecological risk assessment, we evaluate the risk of ecosystem. Ecosystem is form of biotic factor which consists of the living things. In all living species are included in this, and the second one are abiotic factors. Here are the 4 steps through which we can approach the ecological risk assessment. The first is hazard identification, dose response assessment, exposure assessment, and risk categorization. Integrated approach. This assessment of both human and ecological indicator is known as the integrated approach. Environmental impact assessment. Environmental impact assessment, EIA, is a process of evaluating the likely environmental impact of a purpose project or development, taking into account interrelated socio-economic, cultural, and human health impact, both beneficial and adverse. And we do the screening, which is to determine which project or development require impact assessment study. Then we do the scoping to identify which potential impacts are relevant to assess based on legislative requirements, international conventions, expert knowledge, and public involvement. Assessment and evaluation of impact done to establish most environmentally sound and best option for achieving project objectives. Mitigation and management is done to avoid or minimize the predicted adverse effect. Environmental impact reporters are likely environmental effects of the project. Decision making on whether to approve the project or not and under what condition. And then implementation is done and monitoring is done. Then we provide the awareness, the last step we already discussed. What is mitigation? Air filters for factories, caring for the air we breathe in everyone's responsibility. Contributing to creating a clean environment should be priority in any industrial process, and it doesn't take any environmental expert to realize that the factories and the industrial processes that take place in them should impact on environment as little as possible if we want to contribute a combat climate change. That is why when filter, we have a high commitment to environment, clean industrial process, and people. We are expert in design, manufacturing, and marketing of air filter for factories and industries process. When filter, we will offer you the help you need in your filtration needs for air treatment and ventilation system in any of your application. So what are updates? Environmental health. Here, healthy environment can prevent almost 1/4 of a global burden of disease. The COVID-19 pandemic is further reminder of the delicate relationship between people and our planet. Clean air, stable climate, adequate water, sanitation, and hygiene, safe use of chemicals, protection from radiation, healthy and safe workplace, sound agricultural practices, health, sportive cities, and built environment, and a preserved nature are the prerequisite for good health. Compendium of WHO and UN guidance on health and environment. Here it provides us the sources which are contributing in ecological risk. There is air pollution through chemicals, water sanitation, and hygiene. It deals with climate change, the radiation and its exposure and effects, solid waste management, nature and health, chemicals, safe environments and mobility, and other safe and priority settings for action cross cutting topics. Here's a study regarding a review of status of environmental impact assessment in Pakistan. Environmental impact assessment is a process that examines the potential impacts of development project on society and environment. The concept of environmental impact assessment originated in 1969 by US National Environment Policy, followed by other developed and developing countries all over the globe. The paper reviews and the legal status of environmental impact assessment and its implementation effectiveness and efficiencies in Pakistan. Environmental impact assessment received legal status in Pakistan when the Environmental Protection Ordinance was drafted in 1983. This ordinance was then converted into Pakistan Environmental Protection Act in 1997. Currently, environmental impact assessment is conducted for many development projects in Pakistan, including infrastructure and industry projects. Environmental Protection Acts containing sections related to environmental impact assessment and initial environmental examination. A small preliminary study for environmental impact assessment project have been established by Pakistani provinces, which conduct a systematic facilitation in the country. The effectiveness of environmental impact assessment process in Pakistan can be enhanced by ensuring stakeholders participation, granting transparency, providing resource of environmental agencies and post-monitoring of process, integer environ assessment, which was done on 2021. Here's the second article, which with the title of Environmental Impact Assessment of Phosphate Fertilizer and Phospho Gypsum Waste Element and Radiological Effect. The radiological and elemental hazard incidences of phosphate fertilizers and phosphogypsum waste were investigated by determination of their components concentration using instrumental neutron activation analysis, then comparing the results concentration with the acceptable limit. For non-carcinogen risk, the data was fed into human health risk model to evaluate the potential health risk of heavy metals by pathways and subsequent determination of the hazard quotient, hazard incidence index, and total exposure hazard index. For carcinogen risk, the incremental lifetime cancer risk was calculated. The outcome give rise to the some parameter values and above the acceptable limit. This increases the probability of adverse health effects. So here's the time of MCQs. The first MCQ is a new building construction material for building new hospitals has been proposed, which has more resistance to earthquakes than the material being used now, which is the cement. The primary reason for environmental impact assessment is to A, mitigate existing environmental impact of previous development. B, calculate the size of impact of previous development. C, describe proposed developments. D, identify the environmental consequences of development in advance. A, environmental impact report. Anyone?
D.
Yes, the answer is D, identify the environmental consequence of development in advance. And thinking number 2 is a researcher is interested to find out adverse effect of smoke on humans. For this purpose, he is using a four-step approach. Which of the following is not a hazard identification of smoke in human according to approach? A, incidence of lung cancer in human. B, PM, which is 2.5 or more than normal. C, new cases of asthma. D, as number of cases who develop worsening of COPD. E, incidence of skin cancer in humans.
E.
The answer is B, yes.
B. B.
MCQ number 3, are pharmaceutical companies interested in finding NOAEL of a drug for treating fungal infection? The no observed adverse effect level, which is NOAEL, is level of exposure of found by experiment with dose response curves. NOAEL is alpha, highest point at which no adverse effect has been observed, lowest point at which no adverse effect has been observed, Charlie, average or highest and lowest point at which no adverse effect has been observed, delta, confidence limits at which no adverse effect has been observed, eta, lowest point at which adverse effect has been observed.
B.
D.
Answer is A. In no observed adverse effect, the highest point is the landmark. In lowest observed adverse effect, there is the lowest point, which is being discussed. MCQ number 4, a new drug for treatment of severe COVID pneumonia has been developed. The drug has been used in rats, but human trial has not been done. How can low observed effect level can be predicted for the new drug? A, no observed effect level. B, uncertainty factor. C, reference dose. D, acceptable daily intake. E, observed adverse effect level. Anyone?
B.
Yes, answer
B.
is B, the
B.
uncertainty factor. A new drug for treating invasive breast cancer is in trial. A researcher wants to find out dose at which adverse effects, including nausea, anorexia, and vomiting, are observed. The lowest observed effect level is the A, highest concentration found by experiment that causes an adverse effect. B, lowest concentration found by experiment that causes an adverse effect. C, average concentration found by experiment that causes an adverse effect. D, confidence limit found by experiment that causes an adverse effect. E, average concentration found by experiment that causes no adverse effect.
A.
It's
It's
D.
answer is A, highest concentration found by experiment that causes an adverse effect. MCQ number 6, ecological risk assessment is done for evaluating risk of ecosystem. It is slightly different from human risk assessment because A, endpoints measures are determined in hazard identification. B, population viability is of concern. C, dose response curves are constructed. D, risk characterization is done. E, population viability is not our concern.
C.
Answer is B, population viability is of concern. So MCQ number 7, the aim of environmental risk assessment is risk characterization. Risk characterization is the A, quantitative estimate of exposure level at which a particular level of excess risk exists. B, qualitative estimation of exposure level at which a particular level of excess risk exists. C, qualitative estimation of exposure that at which particular level of reduced risk exists. D, quantitative estimate of only inhaled level of at which a particular level of excess risk exists. E is qualitative estimate of only inhaled level at which the particular level of excess risk exists.
B. B.
Answer is A, quantitative estimate of exposure level at which a particular level of risk exists. It's the quantitative estimation. MCQ number 8, arsenic in water is high around Indus Valley civilization in Pakistan. Amount of level that can be consumed daily during lifetime without any appreciable risk is A, no observed adverse effect level. B, lowest observed adverse level effect. C, uncertainty factor. D, acceptable daily intake. E, reference dose.
B.
Answer is C, uncertainty factor. MCQ number 9, a newborn pharmaceutical industry is proposed to be built in Pakistan. Pakistan, that more drugs can be manufactured locally to reduce the cost of drugs in market. Environmental impact assessment is necessary prior to construction. Screening is the first step which determines A, possible adverse environmental effect of project. B, to determine which project or development requires impact assessment study. C, to approve the project or not, and under what condition. D, to explore alternative. Answer is B, to determine which project or development requires impact assessment study. MCQ number 10, a new industry for manufacturing hospital surgical instrument has been proposed. The industry will be using fuel for operating plant, which is vital for instrument development. This will increase carbon emission, but emission are less than alternatives option available. What should be done? A, start project as hospital surgical instrument are important. B, don't start project as it is hazardous to environment. C, mitigate effects by installing filters and planting trees. D, wait for advanced technology. E, run the industry, no need of intervention.
C.
Yes, the answer is C, mitigate the effects by installing filters and planting tree. Here's the MCQ key. This is the YouTube link where all presentations are uploaded. Kindly like and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very nice presentation. And you have done a lot of hard work, I can see. And in MCQs, all the MCQs are very deep and they need very good understanding in order to answer them. So, very well done, Dr. Mahnoor. You are not only a very good student, but you have proved your words. I have told you that it is very difficult to join the department, but you have done it against all odds. So I'm so proud of you that you are so committed. You have shown your perseverance and you are dedicated to your learning and professional development. So very well done, everyone. So see you in the class. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Khuda Hafiz.